Has Bo Nix already accomplished one of the most difficult tasks for a starting quarterback in the NFL? Was there potentially a silver lining in the Denver Nuggets' disappointing loss to the Chicago Bulls? And do the Denver Broncos as a team suddenly have a little bit of a new chip on their shoulder after the win against the Chiefs? All things to come on today's rundown. Thank you so much for joining us. While you're here, make sure you like and subscribe to our Denver Sports 1043 The Fan YouTube channel. You can find us at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We love interacting with you in the comments and in the replies on all of our various platforms. If you're watching us on X or on Facebook Live, as I know many of you do, we love you. We appreciate you. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Turn on those post notifications so that you never miss a moment with us. Tons to get into today, so let's get right to it and welcome in our friend of the program, Denver sports analyst Jake Shapiro.
Hey,
Jake, coming live from a brand new home. Am I right?
correct. We don't even have the backdrop up yet.
I was going to say, normally it's the brick facade and all the fun little things there, but that's very nice. I'm very happy for you. And Jake, I want to get going here on the Denver Broncos because the result over the weekend really feels like it catapulted the Broncos from a national perspective back into the limelight, and really it put them in a pole position to have a significant backstretch and how it determines their playoff seeding, their divisional standings. They took a 2-game lead in the AFC West, pushing the Chiefs almost mathematically out of contention for the division, sitting there in third behind the Chargers and the Broncos. And they are once again tied for the best record in the NFL and the number 1 seed in the AFC. Do you think that by winning a game against an opponent like the Kansas City Chiefs, who I know are sitting at 5-5, and the season has not gone the way that they thought that it might, but this is a team that's been to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls, including 3 straight, has won 3 during that stretch, and I would still consider them a formidable test in the AFC. So by beating Kansas City in walk-off fashion without Patrick Surtain, without your green dot in Alex Singleton, without the best offensive player through the first 11 games of the season, 10 games of the season in J.K. Dobbins, did the Denver Broncos send a message to the rest of the NFL as much as to themselves about what they're capable of in 2025?
Yeah, Richie, I'm not convinced that Kansas City's still not the best team in the NFL. Like, I'm kind of with the projections and all of the fancy data that suggests that nothing was really learned by that win in terms of the level of these teams. Like, Kansas City seems to be really good, but they've had troubles in one-score games, unlike last year, whereas the Broncos seem to be taking a step up, and they've been really good in one-score games as well. So I think the fact that the Broncos won by a field goal at home against a really good team is a really good sign, because it shows that Bo Nix can close out a team. It shows that Bo Nix has that clutch gene, which we've seen over and over again. And it showed that the defense, which was great all game, but then struggled a little bit in the second half. Maybe they got a little bit tired because they don't have as much depth, whatever it might be. They stepped up when they absolutely needed to. I come away absolutely, enthralled with where the Broncos are after that game. To me, that's the most prove-it Broncos game they've had. But according to the fancy data, I still think the Chiefs are a really good team. So what does that mean about the Broncos? The Broncos must be a really good team if they're able to go toe-to-toe and win by a field goal. Because traditionally, if you win by a field goal or you're favored by a field goal against a team at home, that means you're about the same level. And I don't mind being called at the same level as the Kansas City Chiefs, who have won the division 9 straight years.
Well, Jake, the organization themselves, via Adam Schefter and the litany of national insiders, was basically labeling this game as the biggest game that they've had as a franchise in the better part of the last decade. And they were fortunate to come away with a win. And it came in large part because of a well-timed step up to the plate performance from a player that you mentioned in your answer there in Bo Nix. And it's kind of added another layer to the conversation that we've been having for basically 3 months now in Bo's sophomore season, where it didn't kind of start off the way that we thought it would, given the momentum that they had gained on the back half of his rookie campaign. It ended, obviously, with an exclamation point against Buffalo in the wild card round. But I felt like many of us figured that the 2025 Bo Nix and Broncos offense under Sean Payton would pick up where 2024 essentially left off. And that didn't seem to be the case. It's been a little bit disjointed. It's been clunky. The production hasn't quite been there. A lot of the weapons outside of J.K. Dobbins that were put around Bo Nix, there's been varying degrees of success compared to what we thought. And it's led to some questions about regression with footwork, a potential sophomore slump, which is a common narrative around the NFL, obviously. But this game against Kansas City, even if the box score with 295 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions doesn't scream that it was Bo Nix's statistical best game, I thought it was one of the more poised four-quarter performances, given the magnitude of the game that was at hand and the importance that it was for both teams. That was one of the better games of Bo Nix's young career, because the Kansas City Chiefs, as James Palmer pointed out on our show yesterday, they were the desperate team in that matchup. They were we had all the conversations leading into the week, and I even asked it to you. Was this a must-win game for the Broncos? But the equal argument, and maybe better argument, could have been how much of a must-win game it was for the Chiefs with the way their season has unfolded. So the Broncos with Sean and Bo and that offense being able to do just enough against a team with the pedigree and the chemistry and the firepower that they have shown in Kansas City to be able to handle that best shot and come out on top was big. And I think evidence of why and how big it was came from some of the player reactions after the game. You had multiple guys, and this isn't the first time that many of them have done it, but as the media and the fan base and national talking heads and everybody around the league has had questions about Bo Nix, there has never once been in front of a microphone or with the lights on cracking or moment of doubt from this Broncos organization, mainly in the locker room. Take a listen, for those who haven't heard it, to Adam Troutman's mini diatribe when asked after the game about Bo Nix's performance and maybe some of the chatter around the Broncos starting quarterback.
Bo received a lot of criticism the last couple of weeks, came out today and played one of his best games of the year. What does that say about what his courage, his leadership, and him as a quarterback?
First off, if you're talking about Bo online, you're a coward. Absolute coward. But just want to say that and guard him a little bit. But, I mean, it says a lot. You know, he blanks it out, and we talked about it this week. You know, we don't care what other people think. We know what we have in the building, and we know what he's made of, and we don't really care what people have to say. So, Dragon Slayer 69 with his 7-Eleven Slurpee in his mom's basement, I don't give a what he has to say, right? And Bo doesn't either. So, yeah.
Okay. Lot to unpack there. So I just want to say a couple things. One, real quick. Dragon Slayer 69 is fantastic. 7-Eleven catching a stray out of there, I felt was unnecessary. Everybody loves a good Slurpee.
I drink my Slurpees in my own house, Adam Troutman.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I do it in my basement, that's fine. Or if I happen to be at my mom's house, whatever. But
did you notice that Dragon Slayer 69 is an actual Twitter account?
It is now. I think I saw that it joined in November of 2025. So somebody, like, the internet is undefeated. Somebody picked up on that, and I tip my cap to them because that's pretty funny. But Jake, if we're looking at Adam Troutman's comment there as a whole, one, and I'll just get it off my chest because Adam Troutman said it there. Garrett Bowles also said about, we don't care what other people think, and haters gonna hate. And but Garrett Bowles is angrily staring into Scotty Gange's camera saying, well, what's everybody gonna say now? And nothing, that's what. And Bo Nix talked about, hey, I've been booed before, I'll get booed again. In principle, Jake, would you agree with me that somebody that has to go out of their way to tell you they don't care about what you or other people think very much actually cares about what you and other people think? Is that fair?
Yeah, there are two ways to tell if someone cares about something. One, they tell you they care. Two, they tell you they don't care.
Yeah,
that's been my golden rule for a long time, Richie, and it's absolutely true. I wonder if Sean Payton, like, these guys have have their own social media. They see their stuff. But I kind of wonder if Sean Payton showed these guys like some mean tweets that came out of wherever in a team meeting this week and the
bulletin
preparation
board material from in-house.
Yeah, like on Friday or Saturday, because it's kind of weird that this is when they all decided to get back on, like, how dare you talk bad about Bo? And I agree with them. It was one of Bo's best games as a pro. He still lacked some of the scoring. Like if Bo punches in a couple more red zone trips, this isn't even a close game. But conversely, Bo succeeded because the Broncos didn't turn the ball over.
Correct.
The Chiefs turned the ball over. Like the Broncos won that and they won the game. So as boring as a game as that was for large stretches of it until the end where it got very exciting, right? That's what the Broncos recipe for winning in the playoffs is going to look like. It's going to be disciplined football, forcing a turnover or two, getting after the quarterback with their defensive coordinator who's about to become a head coach again, and not turning the ball over on offense and just taking points wherever you can get them. I think that's a really good recipe, and it's been proven time and time again over NFL history to work. So, yeah, would I like Bo Nix to play better? 100%. I don't think he's had a good year by any stretch. I would not give him even a C grade on the year as someone who is a professor. But what he did on Sunday, I would tell you, was enough to win that game and probably deserves a B or a B+. He was fine. There was no problem with Bo. But for his whole team to come back behind him and rally, I think that could be a rallying point that really brings the Broncos together moving forward, and they ride into this bye on this win streak. I do kind of get on Andrew Mason's train, who's talked about this on Orange and Blue today, about, hey, maybe they need a corrective loss because this offense is really just not going to cut it. Mm-hmm. But this defense is like, I don't know, man, it's 2016, 2015 level or Orange Crush level. Like this defense is unbelievable.
Yeah, they're on pace to shatter a sack record. They continue to set benchmark after benchmark. They have some of the fewest points allowed in the NFL. They're really, from the front end all the way to the back end, with the pieces that they've added and the talent that they've developed, even without the reigning defensive player of the year in Patrick Surtain, there aren't really a whole lot of weak points. And I think middle linebacker was something that we had speculated going into the season. They bring in Dre Greenlaw. We're like, well, that's impossible. How do you stop this defense? He's hurt. He's suspended. You have Alex Singleton, and Justin Strnad steps in and plays like a legitimate starting NFL caliber linebacker. And now with Singleton's cancer diagnosis and subsequent treatment, we're getting a little bit of Greenlaw and Strnad instead of Singleton and Strnad. And they're really just finding ways to continue to do it. They know what they're about. They know what they do well. They don't really do anything that poorly that's like where it becomes egregious on a week-to-week basis. And when they have moments where things aren't going their way, they're able to supplement that with pressure and different disguises and things of that nature. And it's helped out that there's been some fortuitous opportunities, like against Kansas City, where when they're going up against a good offense and they've got a player opposite them like Travis Kelce, who goes off for 10 catches and 94 yards, that Bo Nix and Sean Payton in the offense do just enough to make it so that that's not the backbreaking reason why they lost. But
well,
Jake,
and Richie, I mean, I know, we all know, but overnight I wrote about how Patrick Surtain and Adam Troutman are targeting a return against Washington. And I kind of just realized, I mean, like, I know, but like, I'm like, they just did that without, as you mentioned, their green dot and the reigning defensive player of the year, who we all consider one of the best cornerbacks, maybe in the last 20 years in the NFL. Like, it's remarkable how good this defense is and how deep it is. Their worst play of the entire game was either Hufanga missing a tackle. He's been nails all year, so whatever. He made one mistake. Mm-hmm. Or it's Riley Moss's loud DPIs. And honestly, I think Riley Moss is okay. Like, his mistakes are just really, really loud. He kind of reminds me a little bit.
He always have a spotlight on him when something goes wrong.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Will Barton with the Nuggets, where it's like, all right, this guy's good and he's consistently good, but then he makes this mistake that's just catastrophic. And it's hard to deal with. So, but if that's your third cornerback by the time you hit the playoffs, because either Barron or McMillan are your guys that you're using as your like weapons, I know Moss will play really probably opposite Surtain, but you get my point in terms of like who's featured. I mean, the Broncos are in a fantastic spot, and I really, people are really starting to come around. What I've seen, at least in the last 48 hours, people have really come around on Vance Joseph. People have really started talking about Vance Joseph as one of the best DCs in football. And I think we started talking about it literally from the point after they lost 70-3 to Miami moving forward is when people started realizing, okay, this defense is pretty good. Like from that game forward, this defense has been what this defense is.
Final two questions here on the Broncos for you, Jake. One, I want to bring up the poll question that we laid out yesterday, which was after the loss or after the win against Kansas City, Jake Shapiro, have the Denver Broncos proven to you that they are Super Bowl contenders in this 2025 season?
Well, they're first place in the AFC late into the season. So if they're not Super Bowl contenders, we need a new definition of the word.
Fair.
In terms of, do I think they actually have a chance of winning the Super Bowl this year?
That is what I'm asking you.
No, I don't think that they're there. I just don't think that Bo's playing well enough. I don't think they have enough offensive weapons. And I really think that losing J.K. Dobbins, unfortunately, is really going to affect them. Their run game was not really functioning. And yeah, it was R.J. Harvey's first time really as a starting running back in the NFL, right? Maybe that changes by the playoffs, but as of now, their run game is not good enough. I really would like to see this team again with Ben Powers back at left guard.
Correct.
When Ben Powers gets back, I think this offense, and part of the reason why Bo Nix has struggled, if you look at where Bo Nix is floating in the pocket, it's always back and to the right. It's always away from where Ben Powers would be guarding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when Ben Powers was there, Bo stepped up a lot more. So I think we are actually seeing Bo Nix's struggles have a lot to do with the fact that they just have one of the best guards in football that went down earlier this season, and hopefully is going to make a return.
Certainly could be. I'll transparently say that it was factoring in some improvements that need to happen that you laid out. You can't run the ball the way they did against the Chiefs and expect to have sustained postseason success. That may not even be good enough to give them success on the back half of this regular season. And Bo is going to have to look a lot more like the quarterback we saw for 4 quarters against the Chiefs than we've seen for 3 quarters and change in several other games. So I'm acknowledging that while I voted yes to have the Broncos proven to me that they're Super Bowl contenders in 2025 on our poll, it was coming with some caveats of like things have got to get better, and the J.K. Dobbins injury is probably first and foremost in the things that's going to stand in their way. You too can vote on our YouTube or X platforms on the poll at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube, at DEN Sports 1043 on X. Jake, my final question for you here about the Denver Broncos, because I want to get into a little bit of Denver Nuggets as well. We've talked a lot about Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos kind of as a whole as they progress into their 2025 season. Listening to Adam Troutman, Garrett Bowles, RJ Harvey, all after the game kind of speaking out against detractors or haters, quote unquote, of Bo Nix after his performance against the Chiefs, and coupling that with the multitude of other voices that have chimed in support of the sophomore quarterback, from Sean Payton to Nick Bonito to PS2 to Riley Moss to J.K. Dobbins, Alex Singleton. There really hasn't been a Denver Bronco coaching staff, front office, ownership, or player who has spoken about Bo Nix in a manner that suggests they are anything other than bought in on the former Oregon quarterback. And I think it's fair to at least argue that maybe the toughest thing that a young quarterback trying to break out into the NFL has to try to accomplish is instilling pure faith and confidence in them to lead their organization and be their franchise guy. Given what you've heard from all those players I just mentioned, from Sean Payton as head coach, from George Payton and the Walton Penner ownership group in the front office and above, has Bo Nix in some way already halfway through his sophomore season accomplished that exact feat, one of the tougher things for a franchise quarterback to try to do?
Would you say Patrick Mahomes is that for the Kansas City Chiefs, Richie?
Absolutely.
Andy Reid took a shot at Patrick Mahomes yesterday.
He did.
So
he did.
I don't think it has anything to do with the verbal. I think it has to do with the actions. And do they trust Bo Nix to make plays? And the answer to that is Sean Payton doesn't trust Bo Nix based off of what we've seen with the play calling for a majority of the year until they turn the keys loose in the fourth quarter, because they absolutely have to at times. So, yeah, man, it's great that everyone talks about how much they love Bo and they trust Bo. But there's going to become a time where they absolutely need Bo to go win them a football game in a time that is in crunch time, whether that's late in this season or into the playoffs. And we're going to see if Bo can actually live up to the challenge. Because to me, if they go into the second round and they're down 3 points and they need a drive to either take the lead or tie the game with a field goal with 2 minutes left, and Bo makes those plays, we're talking about Bo like Elway. We're talking about him as a young Elway. We really are. If Bo doesn't do it, we're going, is this guy just Jay Cutler? And that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to what happens here in the next couple of months, not what everyone's saying at Dove Valley.
But Jake, hasn't Bo Nix already shown the capacity to do some of the things that you just mentioned? I mean, he's got 5 fourth quarter comebacks as the starting quarterback of the Broncos in this season alone. And that factors in some of the plays from last year and the games from last year in his rookie campaign, most of which were back-ended there. But I think there's evidence to point to that Bo Nix has already shown the capacity to do some of those things, right?
I agree with you. I think it's different when you do them in the playoffs. And that's the point, is you really don't trust these quarterbacks. I mean, Lamar Jackson might be the only exception in the NFL, maybe Justin Herbert, where you're like, this is our guy, until they do it in the playoffs, right? Like, that's what makes it for Josh Allen, who hasn't gotten to the Super Bowl, but we've seen him do it in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes, right? When you're trying to be one of these elite quarterbacks in the NFL, you don't really garner the trust of the organization and the fan base until you do something special in the playoffs. And for me, that's the last remaining check mark for Bo Nix to become just entrenched here in Denver. And until he gets that opportunity and does it, which I'm not saying he won't, I'm just saying he hasn't gotten there yet, right? Like, he's gotten 1 playoff game his rookie year. Right. It was against an awesome team. They got killed. Okay, whatever. Let's see it this year now that the Broncos are the awesome team and are likely to be playing at home.
All right, it is time to hit the turn. Presented by The Birdie Bar, Louisville's premier indoor golf bar experience. Check them out online on Instagram at thebirdie.bar. Jake, shifting gears to the Denver Nuggets, who suffered an unfortunate loss to the Chicago Bulls, not exactly a world beater team in the NBA so far in this young season. And it drops them to 10-3 overall, but they showed some fight. They had a double overtime game, did the Bulls on a back-to-back coming over here to Ball Arena. And Jake, I think that you can certainly start to pick and point through reasons why maybe the game didn't go their way, and certainly why the season as a whole, shouldn't really detract anything from the fact that they dropped a home game in the beginning of the week against the Bulls. But I want to ask you, Jake, if despite the end result against Chicago, if there's a potential silver lining there with what we saw in the loss from a player like Cam Johnson, who has struggled throughout the start of this season to find his rhythm, find his footing, get that connective tissue kind of built within the offense that revolves around Nikola Jokic. And it seems like we got the best version of that in the loss to the Bulls. When you look at Cam Johnson's stat line in total, he had 19 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He was 50% from the field and 5 of 7 from beyond the arc. So that stat line, I think, is much closer to what we thought we were going to be accustomed to seeing from Cam Johnson on a night-to-night basis when they made the trade with the Brooklyn Nets. Do you view the way that Cam Johnson played in the loss to the Chicago Bulls as maybe not necessarily a silver lining, but at a minimum, a promising sign of potential things to come from the newest Nuggets starter?
Well, David Adelman called it a silver lining. So,
oh, perfect.
After the game, he said, as a team and as an individual, there are wins and losses. And tonight we lost as a team, but this was a win as an individual for Cam, basically, is essentially what he said. So I think that was a really nice game from Cam. And this is something I talked about on Mile High Hoops yesterday with Anilo Pirro and myself. Christian Braun's injury is obviously a net negative for the Nuggets. It's just bad. And you saw some of that yesterday with them not being able to score in transition. They were like 3 for 13, the 3-point barrage that the Bulls were on in the first half. Those are Christian's jobs, and the Nuggets are going to be missing that for the next month plus. But the positive is Cam Johnson can't go out there thinking too much and being the fifth banana. Cam Johnson needs to be a little bit more aggressive as the fourth banana now, and maybe even sometimes the third banana. And as that player, at least last night, he looked a lot better. But some of it was just the fact that he made the shots that he's been taking the entire time he's been with the Nuggets. So I thought Cam was good. Like, there is no problem with Cam. But I do think we're going to see more of this from Cam, especially with Christian injured. The question to me is, what do the Nuggets do in terms of reshaping their bench and reshaping their starting unit without Christian in it for the next couple months? Because that is something we saw as a problem in that game with the bench being outscored. I think it was 66-9. We've been talking about how good the bench was. And you know, part of it too, Richie, was the Bulls played 12 players last night. Like, they just kept coming in with waves and waves, and their starters were like minus 15. Their bench is what really won them that game. And I really don't look at it as a bad loss. The Bulls have had some good wins. They've had a long road trip where they've really struggled here recently. They had that double overtime heartbreaker in Salt Lake City, which normally is a really, really tough back-to-back. But as a young team with a good coach and Billy Donovan, they got back and they turned it around. And, you know, the first game of a homestand always can be a struggle for this Nuggets team. So I'm not really that upset with this Nuggets loss. I actually think the loss at Portland and the loss at Golden State were much more frustrating than last night's. But they've got to continue to take care of business at home. And they were a win away from last night and on Wednesday against a really sorry bum Pelicans team from having the best start in Nuggets history. So it's just a little bit unfortunate that they won't be able to claim that mark.
Yeah, you mentioned the bench. They did have 9 total points on essentially 3 baskets from the entire bench unit. So there's always going to be, I think, push and pull and give and take. You know, Cam Johnson finally found some footing, found his interest, but the bench, which we have, as you mentioned, talked pretty glowingly about over the start of this season, certainly didn't show up, and there's some shifting that has to take place with the absence of Christian Braun for at least, Jake, it seems like another month or so, right?
I would say that at minimum, he will miss the rest of this calendar year. And the Nuggets have I don't have the amount of games that they play on this road trip, but it's like, let's just call it like a 5 to 8 game East Coast road trip. It's their longest one of the year. It starts the game after Christmas. So Christmas, they're at home. That's going to be a really fun time against Minnesota. And then they go out on the road. And Richie, they're on the road till like January 7th. They're on the road for like 15 straight days after Christmas, all on the East Coast. So maybe Christian returns on that trip, but most likely I think he's coming back right after, which will be like January 10th or something like that. So we're talking about Christian missing, 25 games, returning around game 35, which if there's ever a time to miss anything in the NBA, it's now. Like,
early
this
window.
is the least important part of the NBA schedule, and getting him back for January and February, where it really starts to ratchet up, will be helpful. So, like I said, this can have some positive effects. It's a net negative, whether it's Cam Johnson forcing the issue more, maybe Julian Strother gets some more playing time and gets a look, whether that's contributing here in Denver or he boosts his trade value and is able to be shipped out at the deadline with something else. Like, there are positive things that can come from this, but yeah, net negative for sure.
Well, certainly going to be something we keep our eyes on, the return and the potential timetable for Christian Braun. Similarly, we are coming up on or getting close to a potential update or opening of a practice window for Ben Powers, who we talked about for the Denver Broncos. But Jake, despite the loss against the Bulls, it does feel like we are in kind of a golden age window of Colorado sports as a whole. When you look at the Broncos being tied for the best record in the NFL, best record in the AFC, the Avalanche are off to a hot start to their season. They are perennial and continue to be a cup favorite in that regard. The Denver Nuggets in kind of a 2-horse race with Oklahoma City, it feels like at times here in the West. And then you add in the Houston Rockets, who are finding their footing despite some injuries before the start of their season. At a minimum, it feels like 3 of our teams here in the state of Colorado have at worst a decent puncher's chance of making a lot of noise in the postseason. I think that's a great place for us as a media and as a fan base to be.
Yeah, if you want to turn on the television and watch sports, chances are you're going to find something really good to watch here in Denver, so long as April isn't happening and we are at the start of what happens at Coors Field, which they call baseball. It's hard to call a baseball.
That is true. Eventually, the clouds will cover up some of the sun that we are seeing now. But until then, Jake, it is a pleasure, as always, to catch up with you. Appreciate everything you've got going on at denversports.com. You and Anilo on the Mile High Hoops podcast. You can check all of it out at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube or across all of our social media channels. Thank you again for joining me. We'll catch up again soon, man. See you. To the rest of you out there, have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday afternoon. We will catch you again tomorrow at noon for the next rundown.
I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in the work. I only improve this crazy body.